Hello and good day. We are in Algebra, and we are going to be correcting PO10 prior to our quiz, which will be taking in about 5 minutes or so. You are able to use your binders on the quiz, so if there's any that you get wrong and you're not quite sure where you went wrong, make sure that you ask for me to go into more detail with it. Usually it's going to be with a sign mistake, negative signs, but if you're not sure, please do ask. But we'll start here. Here's a situation of variables on both sides in the real world, right? The membership fee for joining a camping association is $45. A local campground charges members of the camping association $35 per night and non-members $40 per night for a campsite. So the deal is here, okay, you pay a membership fee, but then your rate per night is cheaper than if you had not paid the membership fee, okay? And if you ever go to Valley Fair, like you buy a season pass for Valley Fair or Mall of America or whatever, that's the idea behind this. If you plan on going someplace several times, then they give you a little bit of a deal. If you're only going to this campsite once, why become a member, right? That doesn't make any sense. You are paying the fee plus $35, that's $80 to camp when you could have just paid $40, if you're only going there once, okay? So the question is, if you are going 9 times during the summer, is it more financially responsible to pay the $45 and get the cheaper rate per night, or just not become a member and pay the $40? So as a variables on both sides equation, what's this going to look like? How did you set this up? Peter?
35 times n and 45 times n.
So when you say 35 times n and 45 times n, how is that set up as an equation?
35n plus 45.
Yes, 35n plus 45 equals what? What's on the other side? Will? 40n. Essentially, you're comparing the price of being a member to a non-member, right? Being a member is that much money, $35 per night plus the $45 fee. Being a non-member is just $40 per night. And you're comparing those two. And the value for n, since we have an equal sign here, the value for n is going to tell you how many times do you go camping for a membership to equal the cost of a non-membership. So if you go less than that, then you should just not become a member. If you go more than that, then you should become a member. Okay? So the value for n here is kind of that tipping point. And what does n end up equaling here if you solve this equation? Yeah, 9. So what that means is that if you go 9 times, your 9th time going, whether you become a member or not, you'll have broken even. So if you plan on going 9 times during the summer, what does that tell you as far as whether or not you should become a member?
No, become a member. Because it wastes time to sign up.
Oh, there we go. He's thinking outside the box. Yeah, don't become a member because it breaks even, right? Cost-wise, it'll be the same. Cost-wise, it'll be $360 whether you become a member or not if you go 9 times. And then he's saying, well, yeah, but all that paperwork, you got to, it's not worth it. I like the way you think. Okay, maybe there are perks. That could be too. Maybe you get the clean porta potties, not the dirty ones, right? That's possible. Yeah. Shh. Oh, folks, I can't hear in the back. That would be too. Is this like a lifetime membership or is it just an annual thing where you got to pay every year? There are other factors that would need to be considered, and each factor in math equates to another variable, and we don't know how to solve equations with multiple variables yet. Come CO38, you will, but we're not there yet. So,
How do you know that?
because I wrote it and I've taught it for several years, so things stick in my brain. I can't remember my kids' birthdays, but I can remember this. So there you go. Any questions on that? All right. Going on to the page of equations. down here. These were all kind of the culmination of combining like terms, distributive property, variables on both sides. These are, geez. Okay. So the first one, n equals -1. N equals -1. You know what? I should. Yeah. No. I'm okay. Next one. N equals 4. Either of those, would you like to see in more detail? Yeah? The first one. So this one, once you distribute, -18 minus 6n equals 6 plus 18n. Okay? It's tempting to maybe look at this and say, well, I got the same thing on both sides, right? I got 6's, got 18's. Is this one of those no solution or all solution situations? It isn't, because you look at how many n's there are, right? On the left side, you got -6. On the right side, you have 18. So your next step, and you can do it different ways, but what I would do, I would move my constant over to the left by subtracting it to get -24. Move my variables over to the right by adding them, and now I've got -24 equals +24n. So if you got this one wrong, check your coefficient, 24, check your constant. If they're both 24s, then you probably lost the negative sign. Okay. If one of them's not a 24, then go back and make sure you did order of operations correctly, that you did add and subtract correctly, kind of identify where that mistake might have happened. William, you good? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Either of those two? Okay. Next row. We've got x equals 5 for the first one. And for the second one, x equals, hold on. Never mind. Sorry. I skipped a row. X equals 3. My bad. And n equals -1. So 3 and -1 for row 2. The first one. So after you distribute in this first one, you should get 8x minus 6 minus 8 equals 4 plus 2x. Okay? Just 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times -3, -6, and that -8, which you don't distribute to, so it's not in the parentheses, just drops down. In your next step, now you're going to look to combine like terms. -6 minus 8, that's going to give us 8x minus 14 equals 4 plus 2x. Good so far? Okay. So then, to get variables on both sides, did you move them to the left or move them to the right? Left. So then you'd subtract 2x from both sides to get 6x on the left. You'd add 14 to both sides to get 6x equals 18, and then divide 18 by 6, and you get 3. Okay. Anything else with that? Yeah. Sure. Second one. So for this one, the left side you're not going to do anything with yet. Just says 3n minus 5. Then when you distribute in the -8, it's going to be -48 minus 40n. -48 minus 40n. Did you move your n's to the left or the right? Okay, so we're going to subtract 3n from both sides. So that's going to give us a -43n over here. -40 minus 3. That means we're going to move our constants to the left side. So we're going to add 48 to both sides, and we get 43 equals -43n. Then dividing those gives us -1. Good? Okay. Anybody else? Still not quite sure what just happened? Oh, okay. The next 2 rows. This first one, x equals 5. I'll write the answer above in case I won't do that. I'll write it below. X equals 5 for that one. Here we have x equals 4. I'd be shocked if no one needed to see either of these. We want to go over them? Okay. So for this first one here, in front of this first set of parentheses, we only have that negative sign, which means what are we distributing into the parentheses? Negative 1. Even though that 1 isn't written, it's a coefficient of negative 1 to those parentheses. So when you distribute the negative sign in that first set only, right, because then we have subtraction, and that's something else here. So this will become negative 1 minus 7x. All that really happens is the sign changes of what's inside your parentheses. Then you've got a negative 6 times negative 7 minus x. So remember that sign belongs to the 6. So you're distributing in a negative 6 into the parentheses. Okay? That's going to give us negative 6 times negative 7 is a positive 42. And then negative 6 times a negative x is a positive 6x. Lots of sign changes going on here. Okay? If you made a mistake, it was probably somewhere in there. You've got a negative 1 times 1, which is where this negative 1 comes from. Negative 1 times 7x, which is negative 7x. Negative 6 times negative 7, positive 42. Negative 6 times negative x, positive 6x. And all of that equals 36, because we didn't do anything to the right side yet. Any questions on that part of it? Okay. Now for combining like terms, we look at our constants. We have a negative 1 and a positive 42. Negative 1 and positive 42 give us positive 41. And then we have a negative 7x and a positive 6x. Negative 7 plus 6 give us negative 1x, or just minus x. And that equals 36. Okay. Questions on that? All right. Then we're going to subtract 41 from both sides to move our constants to the right. Negative x equals negative 5. But we're not done yet, because what's the coefficient to x? Even though it's not written, that sneaky negative 1, okay? Negative 1x equals negative 5. We don't want to know what negative x equals. We want to know what positive x equals. So we do need to divide by negative 1 here to cancel that coefficient out. And negative 5 divided by negative 1 equals positive 5. Okay? Yes?
So if the numbers you're combining are on the same side of the equal sign, then they're not going to be the opposite numbers.
Exactly. And the reason why is because, again, think of this as like a scale in science class, right? Like that balance scale that you've used before, maybe. If you've got this balance scale and you just take one side and you rearrange terms, you don't move them to the other side, you just rearrange them, does anything happen? No, it's still going to be balanced, right? Whereas when you move something to the other side, now you've got to make sure that you're doing it to both sides, opposite operations, otherwise it's going to throw it off. So if you're not moving something, you do not use opposite operations. If you're simply combining, just rearranging and putting things together on the same side, this right side doesn't change at all, until you get down further, right? But then you wouldn't use opposite operations, okay? Is that clear to everybody? Is that, opposite operations are only used when you're moving something from one side of the equation to the other, okay? The next one here, double distribution. Double distribution. Similar to what we had here. We're going to take this negative 3 and distribute to give us negative 12x minus 9. And then we're going to take that positive 4 and distribute into our second set of parentheses to give us positive 24x plus 4. So if you didn't get this far, then something happened with the distribution. Okay? If you've got this, and still got the wrong answer, then something happened in the either combining like terms or the solving process, right? So kind of identify where the mistakes are being made here. Now to combine like terms, I've got a negative 12x and a positive 24x. Negative 12 plus 24 is positive 12. No opposite operations because I'm not moving it. I'm just rearranging, combining, putting together. Okay. Negative 9 and a positive 4. Negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. And that equals 43. So if you didn't get this far, then it was something in the combining step. Once we're here, we're at our two-step equation, hopefully our comfort zone. Now we're using opposite operations because we are moving terms from one side of that equation to the other. We have to cancel out. We have to remove it from the left side and bring it to the right side. So now opposite operations kick in. So we have 12x equals 43 plus 5, which is 48. Divide both sides by 12 to get x by itself, and we get x equals 4. Okay. Questions on that one? We did the bottom right one together in class. That ended up being something really nasty. Negative 13/14, right? Turns out the one on the left was also nasty. Not quite negative 13/14, but it still didn't end up pretty. So we will talk about that. So for starters here, we've just got to distribute, and then we have variables on both sides. So I'm not going to do anything to my left side yet. Keep it at 24n minus 22. And then on the right side, distribute negative 2 into my parentheses. Negative 2 times 1 is a negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 6 is a positive 12n. Okay. Now that I've got variables on both sides, I want to get all my variables on the same side. I can move my 24n's to the right. I can move my 12n's to the left to keep things positive. Most of you probably subtracted 12n's from both sides to cancel those 12n's out on the right and bring them over to the left. So I got 12n minus 22 equals negative 2. Okay. Now this is kind of set up for you to fall into it's not really a troll, but it's kind of set up for you to think about this as, you see the 12, you see the 22 and 2, you think, oh, 24, it's going to work out nice and pretty, everything's happy, but it doesn't, right? Because when you add 22 to both sides, you get 12n equals positive 20. Negative 2 plus 22 is positive 20. And that doesn't work out evenly, but that's okay. Right? Because when we divide by 12 now, to cancel it out on the left side, remember that division and fractions are the same thing. So 20 divided by 12, you just think about that as 20 twelfths. What does that fraction simplify to be? 20 twelfths. Peter? 5/3. And that is what n equals. Okay. If you wrote the decimal value, which is 1.6 repeating, that's okay. It means the same thing. But remember, like we've talked about before, whenever you have decimal values that are rounded, I mean, you can't put 1.6 repeating into your calculator. You can put 1.66666 until you run out of room. But when you stop, then that's like the end of the decimal. The calculator doesn't know, oh, you want to continue that on, right? So if you're using a decimal value to check work or to calculate something else, it's best to take that fraction value because the fraction value is exact. The fraction value, your calculator knows that it's 1.6 repeating, okay? So like we talked about, you've got that ABC button on your calculator somewhere above the 7, a couple rows up. That's your fraction button. So when checking this, if you 24n minus 22, 24, then in parentheses maybe 5, and you get that little L symbol. Maybe it's the other way. I don't know. But that's the ABC button there. That's that symbol that tells your calculator you want the fraction 5/3. Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay. Obviously, we're not going to have time to take a quiz on this today. So your homework for tomorrow, the quiz is only 5 questions. It is posted in Google Classroom. You may use your binder. You may use a calculator. Have that finished for tomorrow so we can look at the answers and go over them in class. Okay? Yes, sir.
Not as relevant, but it is snowing.
It is snowing outside. Oh, how fantastic. Very, very good. Very, very good. Okay. All right, folks, homework for tomorrow. Check Google Classroom for your quiz. That is, hey, algebra. Hey, Schlafer, Drew, I didn't do my sign off yet. The most important part of the lesson, one could argue, that is how you math.